Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of Zoho Creator Talks. I'm your host, Thinakaran, and sitting across from me, well, virtually at least, is my co-host, John Britto. How's it going today?
Doing great. Excited actually, because today's topic is one of those deceptively simple features in Zoho Creator that ends up being a real productivity booster.
Exactly. And I think that's what makes this episode fun. Not every improvement in Zoho Creator comes with fireworks. Sometimes it's the small features, the ones you overlook at first, that completely change the way you build and use apps.
Totally agree. And what we're talking about today, functionality-based URLs, is one of those. I know some listeners might be thinking, wait, URLs? That sounds basic. But stay with us, because by the end of this episode, you'll see just how powerful this little trick can be.
That's the key, right? It's not about fancy coding or huge workflows. It's about something simple you can start using right away. Whether you're a developer, a business user, or even just someone filling out forms, this is relevant.
And I think the timing's good too. More and more businesses are moving toward frictionless data entry. Nobody wants to keep filling the same details again and again. You want to open a form, see half the work already done, and just focus on what matters.
Right. Think about how we use apps in daily life. Like when you order food online, the app already knows your address. Or when you shop on e-commerce sites, your saved payment method pops up automatically. That's all about reducing friction.
And Zoho Creator is giving us that same kind of convenience in forms. Through functionality-based URLs. It's not just a time saver, it's about consistency, accuracy, and making life easier for both the form creator and the person filling it.
So here's what we'll do today. First, we'll break down what functionality-based URLs actually are. Then, we'll walk through real-world use cases. We'll explore technical details, advantages and disadvantages, common mistakes, best practices, and then we'll wrap things up by looking into the future.
It's going to be a good one. And if you're someone who's ever groaned while filling out a repetitive form, this episode is basically a gift.
Absolutely. So grab your coffee, settle in, and let's get started with understanding what functionality-based URLs are all about.
All right, let's start from the ground up. We've been saying functionality-based URLs quite a bit. But what exactly does that mean?
Good place to start. So in the simplest terms, a functionality-based URL is just a special link that does more than just open a form. It tells the form what to do when it opens, specifically what values to prefill.
So instead of just pointing to the form like a front door, this kind of URL is like a front door with instructions attached. Hey, when Chelsea walks in, put her name on the guest book already.
Exactly. That's the perfect analogy. Normally, if you send someone a Zoho Creator form, they have to type everything in from scratch. But with functionality-based URLs, you can say this field should already have Chelsea's name. This drop-down should already say marketing department. And this status field should already be set to active.
That's powerful. And the great part is, the person filling the form doesn't even need to know what's happening behind the scenes. They just open the link and boom, most of the work is done for them.
Right? And that's what makes it so valuable. Pre-filling fields might not sound flashy, but it actually solves some of the biggest pain points in data entry, mistakes, repetition, and wasted time.
Totally. And let's be honest, nobody likes typing the same details over and over again. Imagine you're an employee filling out weekly reports. Do you really want to keep typing your name, your department, and your manager's name every single time?
Exactly. Not only is it boring, but it also creates room for typos. You type HR one week, HR the next, human resources another time. Before you know it, your reports are inconsistent. Functionality-based URLs eliminate that problem.
So in short, it's not just about saving a few seconds here and there. It's about standardizing the data and making sure your apps are smarter.
Yes, And the beauty is that this doesn't require any coding skills. You don't have to build a complicated workflow or script. You just tweak the URL, something anyone can do, and suddenly your form behaves differently.
I like to think of it as the Swiss Army knife of form links. Small, simple, but can do so much once you know how to use it.
That's a good way to put it. And once businesses start using this, they realize it's not just convenience, it's a step toward automation. Every little manual step you remove is one less.
And here's the kicker. You can generate these URLs dynamically. So it's not like you have to sit there and craft every single link by hand. Your system can generate them and send them automatically through emails, notifications, or even WhatsApp.
Exactly. We'll get into that more when we hit the technical part. But for now, listeners should remember this. Functionality-based URLs equals smarter links that prefill fields so your forms are faster, cleaner, and easier.
Perfect summary. I think that gives everyone a solid foundation to move into the deeper stuff.
Let's talk about real-world use cases because that's where listeners really connect. It's one thing to understand functionality-based URLs in theory, but it's another to see how they actually make day-to-day work smoother.
Absolutely. Here's one practical example: HR onboarding. Think about how much time HR teams spend sending forms to new employees. Normally, a new hire gets a generic form and has to type in details like their manager's name, department, or location. But with functionality-based URLs, the HR team can send each person a custom link where the manager field or even department is already pre-filled. That means fewer mistakes, less back and forth, and faster onboarding.
That's a solid example. Let's move to sales. Imagine a sales manager who has to distribute lead entry forms to field reps. Instead of giving them a blank form where they risk mistyping their region or leaving out their name, the manager can generate URLs where region and sales rep name are already pre-filled. Each rep gets their own version of the link, and suddenly data entry is way more accurate.
Right. And the same logic applies in logistics. Say a company has multiple warehouses across different cities. Rather than making drivers or warehouse staff scroll through a drop-down list to pick their location, the logistics coordinator can send them links with warehouse location pre-selected. It saves time and reduces errors, especially when employees are working in fast-paced environments where efficiency really matters.
Exactly. And what's interesting is how universal this is. Whether it's HR, sales, logistics, or even industries like education, healthcare, or finance, the principle remains the same. Pre-fill the repetitive fields so the end user focuses only on the information that really requires their input.
And that's the real beauty of functionality-based URLs. They remove friction, cut down on mistakes, and introduce a level of automation that makes processes feel seamless. The less time people spend fixing errors or retyping the same information, the more time they can spend on meaningful work. Alright, so far we've talked about what functionality-based URLs are and why they are useful, but let's roll up our sleeves a bit. How does this actually work on a technical level?
Good question. The nice thing is, it's not rocket science. At its core, you're just taking your normal Zoho Creator form URL and adding what's called a query parameter at the end.
Okay, so what's a query parameter for folks who aren't too technical?
Think of it like giving instructions to the form through the URL. You have the main URL of your form, then you add a question mark, and after that you tell the form which field to pre-fill and with what value.
Like writing a sticky note that says, "Hey form, when you open, set this field to this value."
Exactly. For example, let's say we want the users field to be pre-filled with Chelsea. The URL would look like this.
Nice. So users is the field, Chelsea is the value, and everything before that is just the regular form link.
You got it. Now here's where people get tripped up. The word users here isn't the label you see on the form, it's the field link name that's defined inside Zoho Creator.
Oh yes, I've seen this mistake. People copy what they see on the form, like assigned to or full name, but in the backend, Zoho might be using a different link name. And if you get it wrong, the prefill just doesn't work.
Right. So step 1 is always go into your form, check the field's link name, and use that in your URL.
Got it. What about if you want to prefill more than one field?
Great question. You just chain them together with an ampersand. So, for example,
So in this case, Chelsea goes into the users field, New York into location, and active into status. All at once.
yes, and it doesn't stop there. You can pre-fill drop-downs, lookups, date fields, even numbers. As long as the value matches what the field expects, you're good.
That's powerful. But what if the value has spaces, like if the location was New York City?
Good catch. In that case, you need to encode the space. You can either write New York City or sometimes wrap it properly depending on your use case. If you don't, the URL will just break or cut off after new.
So it's like speaking the URL's language. You have to format things in a way the browser understands.
Exactly. Another thing worth noting is that for date fields, you usually need to pass the date in the format Zoho Creator expects, like YY-MM-TD. If you pass something like 24th September 2025, it won't pass correctly.
Makes sense. Keep it clean and standardized.
And if you're wondering, yes, you can absolutely generate these URLs dynamically. For example, inside a workflow or script, you can build the link with parameters and send it out through email or SMS. That way, every user gets a custom link tailored just for them.
That's where it gets exciting. Because then you're not manually creating links, you're letting Creator handle it on the fly.
Exactly. Imagine an HR onboarding workflow. As soon as a new hire is added, the system emails them a form link that already has their name, department, and manager pre-filled. Zero manual work for HR.
Or in customer support, you send a ticket feedback link with the ticket ID already filled in. The customer doesn't even have to remember which ticket it was.
Perfect example. So the technical breakdown might sound a bit geeky, but once you try it, you'll see it's basically just adding sticky notes to your URLs.
And to be honest, that's my favorite kind of feature. Simple to learn, but the impact on productivity is huge.
Alright, now that we've seen how functionality-based URLs work, let's talk about why you might want to use them, and also some potential pitfalls.
Perfect. Starting with the advantages, the biggest one is efficiency. Instead of having users manually fill in repetitive fields, these URLs pre-fill them automatically. That means less typing, less time spent on forms, and fewer errors.
Right? And that naturally leads to accuracy. Since the values are controlled and pre-filled, there's no risk of typos or inconsistent entries. For instance, imagine sales reps entering the same region in a report. One types Northeast, another NE, and the data ends up messy. Pre-filled URLs standardize that.
Exactly. Another big advantage is automation. You can dynamically generate URLs through workflows or scripts in Zoho Creator or even Zoho CRM. So you're not manually creating links for each user. The system handles it, which is a huge productivity boost.
And let's not forget user experience. There's a subtle but important psychological benefit. When users open a form and see that most of the work is already done for them, it feels smooth, intuitive, and professional. People actually enjoy interacting with your apps more.
Plus, it reduces errors in dependent fields. If you have drop-downs or lookups, pre-filled URLs can help ensure the right values are selected consistently, avoiding follow-ups or corrections later.
Alright, let's flip the coin. What about the disadvantages?
First up, security and privacy. Because values are in the URL, anyone who sees or forwards the link could access that information. So you don't want to pre-fill sensitive data like salaries, social IDs, or confidential internal details.
Exactly. Another limitation is field dependencies. Some fields depend on others. If you pre-fill a child field without pre-filling the parent field, it might not populate correctly. That can be confusing for users if the form doesn't behave as expected.
And there's link management. If you're generating hundreds or thousands of URLs, keeping track of who has which link and when it was sent can get tricky. Without a proper system, you might lose control or duplicate effort.
Finally, there's the risk of over-reliance. Teams might get used to URLs doing all the work. Then, if they ever need to fill a form manually, they could struggle or make mistakes because they're no longer familiar with the process.
So, to sum up, the advantages: efficiency, accuracy, automation, and better user experience. The disadvantages: security concerns, field dependency issues, link management challenges, and over-reliance.
Exactly. And the takeaway here is simple. If you implement these responsibly, the advantages far outweigh the disadvantages. Use proper testing, avoid sensitive data in URLs, and document your fields.
Right. That's how you get all the productivity benefits without running into headaches later.
Alright, let's have some fun now. One of my favorite parts, seeing how people actually use functionality-based URLs in creative ways.
Yes, because once you understand the mechanics, the possibilities are endless. Here's one example from an event management client of mine. They were hosting a conference with VIP attendees, and instead of sending a generic registration form, they created a personalized link for each guest.
Oh, I love that. So each VIP opened a link with their name, ticket type, and session preferences already filled in?
Exactly. All they had to do was review the details and hit submit. It felt seamless, and the client loved it because it reduced mistakes and saved their team a ton of follow-up emails.
That's brilliant. I've also seen it used for employee surveys. Imagine sending out a feedback form where the department field is pre-filled based on the employee's record. Now, when you collect responses, you can segment them automatically by department without extra work.
And in sales, you can pre-fill lead forms with the salesperson's name or region. That way, reps never have to guess or misenter data, and the CRM stays clean.
Even in logistics, as we discussed before, pre-filled warehouse locations or delivery zones can save minutes per form, which adds up fast across a team.
Exactly. Now let's move to best practices, because even though this feature is easy, there are some rules of thumb to follow.
First, keep your URLs manageable. Don't create overly long links with too many parameters. It's easier to handle, share, and debug if they're clean and concise.
Second, avoid sensitive information. Don't pre-fill confidential data like passwords, salaries, or private IDs in the URL. If you need to handle sensitive info, use server-side pre-filling or deluge scripts instead.
Third, document field link names. A lot of confusion comes from mismatched names. Make sure your team knows the exact link names for every field you're pre-filing.
Fourth, test everything thoroughly. Open your URLs in incognito mode or a private browser to see exactly how they behave. Check drop-downs, dependent fields, and date formats.
Fifth, consider dynamic generation. If you're sending hundreds of links, you don't want to manually type each one. Use workflows, scripts, or CRM integrations to generate the URLs automatically.
And finally, think creatively. Once you get comfortable with this, you can combine pre-filled URLs with email campaigns, QR codes, or even automations. The goal is to reduce friction and make the experience smooth for the user.
Exactly. Fun examples plus solid best practices. That combo ensures your implementation is both creative and reliable.
Yes. And as a bonus tip, keep an internal library of your most used URLs. That makes scaling easier, especially if you're rolling out forms across departments or multiple clients.
Okay, before we jump into the future of this feature, let's talk about something every Zoho Creator user faces at least once: mistakes and troubleshooting.
Oh yes, the "why isn't this working" moment. The number one issue I've seen is people using the field label instead of the field link name in the URL.
Right? For example, your form might show the label assigned to, but the system link name is actually users. If you type $assigned to equals Chelsea, nothing happens.
Another mistake is with spaces in values. If the value has spaces like New York, you need to use %20 or wrap it correctly, so the URL becomes like this.
Good one. And also, some users forget that dependent dropdowns may not populate correctly if you only pre-fill one field. You might need to pre-fill both parent and child values.
Exactly. My tip: always test URLs in a private browser or incognito mode. That way you can see if it really works without cached form behavior interfering.
That's a pro move. Test, tweak, and only then roll it out to your team. So now that we've covered the how-tos, mistakes, and best practices, let's stream a little. Where could functionality-based URLs go from here?
I love this part because even though the feature is powerful today, I think it's just scratching the surface. Imagine if URLs could not only pre-fill values but also trigger specific workflows automatically when the form is opened.
That would be next level. Like, you send a link to a client, they click it, and not only is the form pre-filled, but behind the scenes a workflow assigns a task or sends a notification to the right team.
Exactly. Another possibility is time-sensitive URLs. Picture this. You send a survey link that's only valid for 24 hours. After that, the URL expires or redirects to a different form.
That's interesting because right now URLs are pretty static. Adding expiration rules or conditional behavior could make them more secure and dynamic.
Yes. And speaking of dynamic, how about integration with QR codes? Instead of a long link, you generate a QR code that embeds all the pre-filled details. Employees or customers just scan it and the form opens ready to go.
I can totally see that in logistics or events. For example, packages arriving at a warehouse could have a QR code. Staff scan it, the form opens with package ID, warehouse location, and expected date already filled in.
Or at a conference, attendees could scan their badge QR code, and the registration or feedback form opens with their name, company, and session details already filled.
I also think AI could play a role here. Imagine smart links that predict what values to prefill based on past patterns. Like, if I usually assign tasks to a certain region, the link could automatically add that without me typing it in.
No typing needed. That's a game changer. Combining the simplicity of URLs with the intelligence of Zia inside Zoho Creator.
So future possibilities really come down to more automation, more intelligence, and more flexibility.
Yes. And it all points to one big idea: reducing friction. The fewer clicks and the fewer mistakes your users make, the more powerful your creator apps become.
Alright everyone, that brings us to the end of today's deep dive into functionality-based URLs in Zoho Creator. It may seem like a small feature at first glance, but as we've seen, it can actually have a big impact on productivity and user experience.
Absolutely. From automating pre-filled forms to reducing errors, saving time, and even enabling smarter workflows, it's one of those hidden gems that can transform how your teams interact with creator apps.
And we can't stress this enough. While the feature is powerful, using it responsibly is key. Avoid putting sensitive data in URLs, always test your links, and make sure dependent fields are handled correctly.
Right. And don't forget to document your field, link names, and track the URLs you generate. That makes it easier for your team to scale these processes without confusion.
One thing I love about features like this is that they're deceptively simple. You don't need to be a coding expert, but the benefits, efficiency, accuracy, automation, are enormous. It's a reminder that sometimes small tweaks can create big wins.
And thinking ahead, we're excited about the possibilities. Time sensitive links, smart AI driven prefill fields, dispatch, QR code integrations, and deeper workflow automation. The potential for reducing friction and making apps smarter is huge.
So, whether you're in HR, sales, logistics, or any other function, take a moment to explore functionality based URLs in your Zoho Creator apps. Even a few links can save hours of manual work and improve accuracy across your processes.
Exactly. And if you've already tried them, we'd love to hear about your experiences. Which use cases worked best for you? Any tips or lessons learned?
Thanks for tuning in to Zoho Creator Talks. Don't forget to subscribe, share this episode, and leave a review if you found it helpful. See you next time.